today with the Simplicity Regent. It's got the 20 horsepower Briggs Stratton V twin on it. I'm going to go over a common issue that these things have after usually 300 or 400 hours when they won't turn over properly. So you turn the key and it stops at a hard spot to turn. This thing has had the battery replaced, the starter replaced, all the connections have been gone through, and he replaced the solenoid recently also. I'll show you everything you need to know about getting this back into working order if yours is having a similar issue on one of these Briggs V twins. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button as we go along if you enjoy the content. This customer said he had a buddy check it out, and his buddy told him that it was going to need a new camshaft. Now we do see camshafts fail on these and will be the cause of an issue like this, but I don't think that's what's going on based on the symptoms and everything he's told me. First things I like to check if you're having an issue, the battery, number one. The battery could be completely low or bad. This is only 230 cold cranking amp battery. I always recommend the 340 or above cold cranking amp battery for this. So it is a little bit low, but it still should do the job if everything's working properly. Make sure your connections are tight, both at the battery, your negative and your positive, at the solenoid, at the positives there, and then where the ground, the negative, comes back to the frame. On this one, it actually comes back and it secures on this bolt going up through. So on the bottom side is where it comes to, and that's where it secures to both the frame and the engine to make a good connection. You can also check that starter wire. Again, this is a brand new starter. It's an OEM starter. Everything in the electrical system has been checked. You can test to the solenoid as you're turning everything over to these two wires. If you put your voltmeter on that, you should get at least whatever the battery voltage is, or real close to it. If you're not getting that, you know you have some sort of issue in one of the safety switches or a bad connection somewhere. It could also be the ignition switch causing that. I'll show you what this does next. This one is not nearly as bad as many of them I see. Many of them will completely lock up pretty well every time. This one seems to turn over well sometimes. Then it locks up like that. It depends on when you're hitting it, whether it turns over or not. Now he says it locks up more often than not, but I haven't got this thing not to turn over completely the entire time, but all that hanging up that it's doing is very hard on the electrical system. Well, there it almost didn't start. If yours is hanging up like this, a lot of times they won't turn over after that high compression stroke like that at all. In this case, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the valves and see what kind of spacing they have. If the valves are spaced too far apart, it's gonna not release the compression for them to allow that to turn over. And it could just be one or the other on this. There it is where it didn't want to turn over. It eventually did. I don't like to hang it in there too much. I don't want to ruin anything. But this, again, is a very common issue. We'll go towards the valves, and a valve adjustment should solve this issue completely on this engine. One very easy way to test our theory on this is to go ahead and remove the spark plugs and turn it over again. If it turns over without any resistance when that happens, then you know for sure that the issue is a compression issue. That's what's keeping it from turning over. Remove these plugs real quick. And that, again, you know for sure, but if your battery is weak or something like that, or there is not a good connection, that will also cause this. But we've already checked all those things, so we know those are good. Plugs don't look great, but not too bad. Let's see what it does. It's working just good. Seems like no matter what we do, works perfectly there. I'm gonna leave these plugs out, at least this right side, since we're gonna pull it first. We're also gonna pull and do the other side valve adjustment. We'll take our 3/8 bolt out of the valve cover to inspect the valves. They're all the same size. pull that breather tube there. I might not actually have to. Oh, yep, the gasket's ripped. Sometimes you can get away with reusing your gaskets. In this case, I'm going to replace it. So how this works is this camshaft spins around in the bottom and there's a little counterweight here. So as it's going slow, this counterweight is not engaged like this. So there's little bump outs right here for each one of the cam lobes. And that's going to slowly open the exhaust valves just for a split second. When it's in that compression stroke, it's going to bump that push rod out and release the compression. If the camshaft weight is bad or it's exploded or anything, these bump outs will not be there. Now, both of these bottom ones are for the exhaust valve. If you look at the diagram for these engines, it will tell you that the bottom one is the intake valve. That is incorrect. That is not how it's supposed to be. I pulled a head off of another one, which is basically exactly the same as this. And if you look here, your bottom valve, which is right here at the bottom, this is the exhaust valve. You can see straight down through there. That's the valve that is for your exhaust. Straight down there. That is not the intake valve, even though that's what it'll tell you on the parts list. They have them backwards. They're listed wrong. Again, both of these bottoms control the push rod for the exhaust valve on either side. We're going to check these at top dead center and see what the spacing is to begin with, and adjust the spacing on both the intake and the exhaust valve. To check where top dead center is, we'll turn over the engine clockwise until the piston starts to come up on the compression stroke. So what that means is when this is all the way at the very top, both of these valves should be closed. If you weren't on the compression stroke, right here it's coming up, one of these is going to be open. So if you look there, the intake valve is still open. That's incorrect. There's many different ways you can find this out exactly. That's the way I like to do it. It's super easy unless this valve is adjusted way out, and then you won't notice that it's actually engaged on the top. Go top dead center here. So again, that's just, you're waiting for that piston to come all the way back up. When it starts going back in, you've gone too far. We're at top dead center here on this cylinder. We're going to be adjusting both the intake and the exhaust valve to 5/1000ths. We'll need a 13mm wrench and a T40 to do this. Both of these seem kind of loose. Let's check and see what they're actually at before we adjust them. See what we got here. I'm going to do 10/1000ths. 10/1000ths here goes in easily on the intake. Goes in kind of hard on the exhaust, but that's twice as far as they should be away. 10/1000ths on the intake. And it's the exhaust valve we're really worried about here, but I'm at 12/1000ths on the intake now. So these valves are way out of adjustment. This thing has 540 hours on it. They should have been adjusted a long time ago. Go ahead and hold on to the screw here and loosen it up. It wasn't extremely tight to begin with. I'm going to loosen that up, get our 5/1000ths feeler gauge. I'm going to put it in there and I'm going to go ahead and tighten this screw up until it gets right where it needs to be. That's strange. I don't know what exactly happened there. Must have moved it way too far and way too fast. I like to go just a tiny bit tight, because they always seem to loosen up just a hair when you're done with it. And you'll hold on to your T as you're tightening with your 13. It always seems to want to loosen up or tighten a little bit. Now as I go in there, it's kind of difficult to get my 5/1000ths in there, but I can move it back and forth very easily. I'm going to just give it one more good tightening down. It seemed like it could have been a little bit loose. And again, you're holding your T as you're tightening your nut. That is right where it should be. Let's go on the exhaust valve. Same thing. Looks like about right there. Sometimes you'll have to set these multiple times. They are pretty specific where they need to be set, so don't hesitate to set it again if the first time you don't succeed. That's just about right. Just about perfect. Again, I'm going to tighten it back up. Make sure that it stays there. Make sure it's plenty tight. There are obviously torque specs on all of this. As long as you know that it's tight, we're not worried about it. I'm going to do the other side real quick off camera, and then we're going to try to fire this thing up. I got a couple screws out and decided I might as well go ahead and show you this side also while we're at it. Doesn't ever hurt to see it done twice. And take that gasket off. Man, these are coming off clean. They're making it too easy on me. Normally it's a pain because it's got a sealant on there as opposed to this. So these valves could have been adjusted at some point or another. It just obviously hasn't been for a while. Let's find top dead center over here. I'm just going to use my T since that's what I have handy. Piston's coming back up. Right there at the top. Both of my valves are loose. Again, if you've got it on the opposite stroke, when you're at top dead center here, your intake valve is going to be pushed slightly. That's not your compression stroke. Right there, perfect. Both are loose. Probably way too loose in this case. Check these again. My intake was on 12 thousandths last time. Let's try that. 12 thousandths fits in there perfect. How about on the exhaust? 12 thousandths fits kind of tight in there, but goes in there also. These are, again, extremely out of adjustment. It's going to be our issue. Take our 5 thousandths again. A little tight. I think I moved that one on it. Not sure that that's going to work. It's a little bit loose. I'm going to take it back off and redo it. Many times, again, you'll have to redo these multiple times if you don't get them right. It's about perfect right where it is. Again, hold your T and tighten your nut to it. It's about perfect. We'll call that good. Move on to our exhaust valve. There we go. It's almost a little loose. I'm going to see if I can't just tighten it up a hair without having to reset it. It may or may not work. Yeah, there we go. I like that a lot better. 5 thousandths on our exhaust. Now what we'll do is we'll install some 690971 rocker gaskets. seal these back up. And again, really easy because we didn't have to scrape all the gasket material off of these. Make sure you didn't miss anything. Make sure everything is clean. As long as it's all tight, you're good to go. Got our opposite side. Again, clean all that up. Make sure there's nothing on it. Pretty clean for what it is. And also clean all this off. Very good. You really should, if you don't know what you're doing as far as an impact goes, start all your screws by hand first. You don't want to strip these out. Plug our pulse line back in. Put our spark plugs back in. I'm going to get a couple new ones. I've already got them out, why not put a couple new ones in? Opposite side. Let's see what this thing does each time we do it. Trying to get it to hang up or see if it's doing anything like that. I can't get it to hang up at all. Everything is working perfectly. No hanging up out of it whatsoever. That tells you that the issue was the compression release. It was not adjusted close enough, causing this kind of problem. On the last video about this issue, a couple people made comments saying, hey, you didn't show us that actually fixed the issue. You didn't show it starting. Well, that was never the issue. This thing would always fire right up if you got it past that compression stroke. But I'll show you, it does run. And it's going to continue to start each time if I want it to. Problem solved. No more hanging up with a starter. It turns over easily, and this is going to help your electrical system also. It's going to help not draw as many amps on the starter, on the solenoid, or on the battery, or any one of those connections as it turns over. Everything is solid, and there's no back pressure, there's no back compression, causing it not to spin over. Hopefully this helps somebody fix the issue they're having with their Briggs V-twin engine. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content.